many people from the community, different community organisations, Walwa and more broadly. So thanks so much for coming along. Thanks so much to everyone on the panel as well. Some had quite a number of voluntary as well, so thank you so much for coming along. Jai mentioned just before that Red Cross has been running what we call a RediCommunities program in different communities around northeast Victoria and also the southeast of the state, areas that were bushfire impacted. And please put your hand up if you can't hear me. I know I've got a bit of a quiet voice. Let's come on in. So RediCommunities is a tool that we have developed which helps people get prepared for all different types of disasters, whether they're flood, fire, pandemics, whatever they are. It's building people's self-efficacy and understanding of risks and assets that are useful during disasters. So what we've done is a number of steps already in Walwa and some of the other communities that we're working in. Come and see us afterwards if you'd like one in your spot too. What we did was with Walwa, we got organised as a community, so who might be interested in getting involved with the program. We learned a bit about disaster preparation. We learned how important it is for people to be connected, knowing your neighbours and people who can help and others, knowledgeable about what your risks are in the local area. Being well-being is a really important one. Being well, healthy and fit puts you in a good position to prepare for disasters. So we learned a lot about disasters and how to get ready for them. We also talked about the assets of Walwa and they're far-reaching. So we did a fun exercise where we pretended we were real estate agents. Somebody found a place to buy in the area. And our job was, as a real estate agent, was to sell Walwa to the people coming in. And it was amazing the stuff that came out. So there's fabulous clubs, there's places to go walking. There's this awesome bush nursing centre which offers so many things, including a wonderful gym behind the doors there. There's some great stuff in Walwa. So those things are really important in an emergency. You know where to go for help, you help develop connections and all those sorts of things. The next step in the process is to run a disaster emergency services panel so that we can hear from all this range of experts about different things that they do during an emergency to help the community. But on the community side of things, we also know it's really important that these wonderful people might not be here when the emergency first happens, particularly a large one in a remote area. So we've learned about some things we can do to help prepare us. One of the things that I want to mention is that on your chairs here, this is one of the products that the community has developed, which is a risk asset map. And you guys have got some copies of this emergency services people can see what role was done. And if anybody missed out during the exercise, please have a look at this map. So the community is well versed in what it can do. Now we need to know what emergency services can do, and I want you to think of yourselves as a team of community and emergency services and how you can work together best if a disaster occurs. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time talking about what we've done and processes and stuff. I think what we really want to do is to jump into hear from each of these fabulous people. First of all, Charlie Sexton from SES is going to give us a bit of an overview about how emergency services can work. So Charlie, can I hand across to you?
I'm Charlie Sexton. I'm from the Victoria State Emergency Centre. I'm a regional officer working out of our Benalla office. When I say region, we work in the Hume region, so the old northeast for you, those of you that think of it that way. So I'm one of the staff members for SES supporting our volunteers in the region, and that's why you've got me here today. And my subject matter expertise, I guess I could say that, is emergency management and emergency management planning. So that's why you stuck with me. Alright, I just want to quickly run over emergency management in Victoria. I want you guys just to keep in the back of your head, all of this stuff is so that we aren't making it up on the fly, because we need to do these things quickly sometimes. Alright, so Victoria has a long history of emergencies, and we've had to develop capability for these events. Many organisations in the community, including emergency services, play a part. And the big word there is community. So emergency services are a part of your community as well. 3, the activities of these organisations, both voluntary and permanently staffed, need to be coordinated to avoid conflict, wastage and gaps, and that's to make sure that it's efficient. Emergency management arrangements cater for dealing with emergencies of all sizes. So the arrangements need to be able to deal with the smallest emergency, whether that's one police car responding to an event or 150 fire trucks responding to an event. So it needs to be scalable for small single agency incidents through to big multi-agency incidents. The emergency management in Victoria involves plans, structures, arrangements, and basically it's bringing together the endeavours of government, voluntary and private organisations and the community to comprehensively coordinate the way we deal with emergencies in the state of Victoria. Alright, so there's actually a definition in the Act as to what an emergency actually is. And it's got some key words that are underlined there or in bold. So emergency means, means an emergency due to the actual or imminent occurrence of an event which may in any way endanger or threaten to endanger the safety or health of any person in Victoria, or which destroys or damages or threatens to destroy or damage any property in Victoria, or endangers or threatens to endanger the environment. So the key words there are actual imminent or endangers and threatens people, property and environment. Alright, so these are some examples of what an emergency might be. So we've got earthquakes, floods, fires, explosions, road accidents, plagues, epidemics. There's a wide range. Warlike acts, hijacks, and disruptions to essential services are also included in there. And that's just some that can be counted as emergencies in the state of Victoria. Alright, so the concepts or the overarching intent of what we're trying to do is approaching all hazards. Right, so not just a certain number of things, but the Emergency Management in Victoria needs to visit all hazards that we could potentially come across. A comprehensive approach to that, which is talking about prevention, response and recovery. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And you'll always hear the agencies at the front of the room here and ourselves talking about this all agencies approach, or we work as one. Because we have to. Right? When you get large scale emergencies, like you would have seen here years ago, we would have seen multiple fire services in attendance, police, a whole heap of other agencies, the Shire, supporting that incident, because one agency can't always deal with one very large emergency. So we'll talk about that prevention, response and recovery. Not everybody really knows what that means. So in the state of Victoria, we talk about the actions that we can do before an emergency, during an emergency and after an emergency. So we'll talk about the before, during and after, which you may have heard people like our Emergency Management Commissioner talking about on the television. Alright, so emergency management is a partnership between the Commonwealth, the state and at local governments. So there's 3 different tiers. There's actually 4 different tiers that we have to work at to make sure that it's scalable for the emergencies we might see. The key points are, it's ineffective if it's done in isolation. Right? And that's why you've got all these people at the front of the room. We don't all do our own, we do our own things, but we need to for our internal agency stuff. But when it's talking about emergency management in Victoria, we work as one big conglomerate of agencies. It needs to involve all relevant people and organisations, and we'll talk about it at a municipal level a little bit later, and with the community, not for the community. And that's a very important one. So we talk about community engagement in emergency management, because we may want to go and think we need to do something to help your community, but that might not be what you guys think is important. So we need to be aware of that so that we can work with you to deal with that rather than dealing with it for you. Or at you. Consequence management, we could talk about this for a little bit, but essentially we need to spend quite a bit of time deciding how we're going to respond to an emergency. And it's about the major consequences that we might see. So consequence management, we'll talk about ongoing assessments. This is before and during an emergency. And although consequence management is a key consideration for all emergencies, it should not interfere with the control of an emergency. And let's not talk too much about acts and numbers. All right, so we've got the arrangements, okay? We're going to talk about how we actually use them to plan for emergencies. So in Victoria, we've got a number of different books. There's lots and lots of stuff written down. And it's stuff. I'm not going to go into it too much. But we use the national arrangements to guide how we do our principles of emergency management. We have an Act, Emergency Management Act 1986. We've got another one, Emergency Management Act 2013. We've got the Emergency Management Legislation Amendment Act 2018. And we've got this thing we call the SEP, which is the State Emergency Management Plan. And then there's a whole heap of different state emergency hazard plans, so they're specific for certain hazards. What do you guys see that's key about these dates and the end of these acts? Pardon? Yeah.
But they happened after an emergency.
Sorry?
They coincide with major events.
They do. Do you know which ones?
Ash Wednesday.
Ash Wednesday.
Black
Saturday.
Yeah.
So we're about to talk about this one. But the emergency management arrangements have had to adapt to large-scale emergencies of the past. So it's about learning from our history. So basically, Ash Wednesday and the Black Saturday fires determined that we needed to do things differently and to be scalable in our approach, and that's why the acts changed. These are some of the other things that we must consider when we're planning for emergencies in Victoria. So land use planning, health and safety, local government regulations, risk management standards are important. I won't go too much into it, but there's a lot of risk management that happens at a municipal level, specific for you guys, that you don't even realise is happening. And that's part of what we do as agencies with your shire. And we use this thing called a community emergency risk assessment to do that. And the key word is community. And in Tower Shire, when we do our risk assessments, community people are involved. We've got our own internal emergency plans within our organisations for our different hazards. And then we have to develop these, under legislation, municipal emergency management plans, which, if you guys were good enough to Google it, you could probably find Tower Shire's one, I think. I've just got this diagram here just to explain to you that today we're at this level, down here at the municipal level. So we have to plan for what's specific to Tower Shire, and then we'll talk about specifically in Tower Shire different areas, like different towns like Walwa, and different hazards that present a risk to those communities. Above that, there's a regional emergency management plan, and then there's ones at state. And it's all about not repeating the same jargon. It's about making sure that it's specific to you guys and your community. I don't want to go too much into the scent itself, because I'll pull the crap out of you. But basically, the way that I like to explain it is that it's the cookbook. It's the recipe making book for us as emergency services and support agencies to plan for emergencies in the state of Victoria. So it's like it's the rule book. Okay? The REMP takes the rule book and makes it regionally specific to the Hume region, of which we all live in. I think we all live in. Walwa's certainly in it. Just. On the other side of the river it changes. And I don't want to talk too much about that because it'll take time, but what I need you to understand is that there's an overarching plan at a Hume level, Hume regional level, that helps guide us into some of the specifics that we need to concentrate on. An example very quickly would be, we don't worry about tsunamis so much here in Hume region. There's a good reason for that. There's a really good levee bank between us and the ocean. But Gippsland has it. That gives you an idea. Hume region, this green polygon up here, and we're So that's your region that you're a part of, and where most of us, I think all of us, work within the Hume region. All right, so the MIMP. So this is when it gets a little bit more specific to municipal arrangements, and where a lot of us in the room work at that level. So each municipality is required in the state of Victoria to have a municipal emergency management plan. It's developed, it will develop by a committee, So there's a committee that in the state plan says people like myself will be on it. It says that Tauranga Shire will lead it. It says that most of the agencies across the front of the room here must be on that committee and provide input into the development of a plan. The plan is then actually audited to make sure that it meets requirements and that it is relevant to the municipality by the regional team. So there's this assurance to make sure that what we are doing as agencies is reflective of what's required for you guys. Don't worry about the rest of that. Alright, so the Tauranga Shire Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee meets 4 times a year, so once quarterly. It has these hazard plans already, if not in draft format, in an approved format, being for fire, bush and grass fire. There's a plan for flood and storm, there's an animal welfare plan, and there's one for pandemic and another one for heat wave. So they're the 4 largest, most significant emergencies for the municipality. So when we talk about planning for emergencies, it's on a large municipal scale rather than a small individual scale. We don't necessarily, so CFA and FRV, Fire Rescue Victoria, will plan for a single house fire and how they respond to that. But that's one house fire, which the impact on the community of Tauranga Shire is actually quite small. It's really crappy for the people that it's happened to, but the impact on the municipality is quite small. So that's why we have to concentrate on those large, widespread disasters and emergencies that can have a large, impactful impact on you guys. The membership within that committee is there's Tauranga Shire staff, and it's led by Tauranga Shire. Police, CFA, SES, ambulance, DEECA, specifically the Forrest Fire Management team. Can't remember what DEECA stands for, sorry.
Changing name.
Enviroment and other stuff. DFFH, which is the Department of Families, Fairness and Housing. Red Cross, Agriculture Victoria, and there are 3 community reps from within the Tauranga Shire that sit on that committee and guide us as regional reps and municipal reps on, they represent you. So there's a couple from Corion and Sean's from Langer, I think. So it's tried to be a wider sort of spread of communities within Shire. Alright, so local government, people don't generally understand that local government has a significant role in emergency management. It's because everybody tends to see the lights and sirens and vehicles with decals down the side of them and that sort of stuff. And that's, you don't see what the municipalities are doing in the background in supporting us agencies to respond to emergencies to help your community. So within the state emergency management plan, councils must coordinate relief and recovery at a municipal level, establish emergency management planning committees, enable community participation in emergency preparedness, including in mitigation and response recovery activities. The CEO or a delegate is the chair of the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee. And relief at campaign style events, and additionally, so campaign, large, long duration, and at written level 1 there, I haven't explained what level, so that's like just a single house fire is an example. Council that provide that relief at all scales in the municipal level. Okay, so if your house burns, they will help you to find accommodation and other forms of relief. Additionally, the same with the support of DFFH and others, Red Cross, at a large scale level, provide that relief. And my understanding is that, yeah, the relief centres closest for you guys here in Walwa is at the Walwa, I didn't spell it very well. The Football Club. Right, it's at the Walwa Footy Club, we're at the Oval there, and very shortly the Memorial Hall, I believe, is going to be officially online as a alternate relief centre as well. Otherwise, it's the now moved to the Upper Murray Event Centre in Corrion, which I understand is the big footy oval. Is that one? Yep.
Getting there.
Yep, okay, it's close.
And just on that, that'll be determined at the time, and that will be determined by a lot of people who will be involved in that conversation in deciding where a relief centre will be open and established. And once again, and it'll be dependent on what the event is and the scale and size of the event as well. Yeah. So it's lovely to say that they're all relief centres, but it will be determined
In consultation with
incident
incident
control,
controllers and
which
police.
is where
and
Sven will be
others.
sitting on the day.
All right, so these are a very quick list of all the other things, some of them the same, that local government play in emergency management. So there's quite a few, but those things they're in the background that people don't necessarily see, but they're very, very involved, including in resourcing us. So if I needed a sand and truck and a loader for a flooding event to fill sandbags, I would ask Challenshire to help, and they would do their best to help. So it gets down to that response level as well. Two very key roles at the municipal level, one being a MEMO, so they're the ones that we will talk to about getting that stuff to help us, and there's a recovery manager. That is the first point of call to manage all of those relief and recovery works that are required. The roles and responsibilities. So the State Emergency Management Plan tells us as agencies who's in charge of what and how you'll go and do it. Right, so it's all in legislation, it's not just something we make up and decide to do. For example, so I've just used SES, so natural events, emergency natural events are control agencies for earthquake, flood, storm, tsunami and landslide. It's all dictated that Victoria's State Emergency Service will deal with that. One in the middle there is heat waves. The Emergency Management Commissioner is in charge of large-scale heat waves. Support agencies, they are all in here. So we've got agriculture. If there's an agricultural support, DEECA will do it. If there's, what else have we got? Earth resources, so mining, if there's an issue with mines, DEECA will take care of it. So it's all listed in there. This is very key though, this is the State Emergency Management priorities. So this is how we guide what decisions we're going to make in a response. So protection and preservation of life. If we can't do that, we'll issue warnings. Then we will look after critical infrastructure, community assets, then residential property, then the individual livelihoods, and then the environment. So it's all dictated in the plan how we will decide what we're going to concentrate on. How we're going to communicate it, what consequences we need to look after, and how we're going to connect with the community. It's all in there. That's the principles of emergency management in Victoria. That's it.
Thanks, Charlie, that's fantastic. Now, Charlie, were you going to give us a bit of a chat about SES as well, and its role and responsibility, what the community can expect from SES during the disaster? So
Sure.
keeping you in the hot
That's
seat
all right.
there for a
No,
while.
that's what I'm already up, aren't I? So these three questions?
Yeah, that's
From
great. Just briefly, that'd be fabulous.
All right. So the first question I've got is, what are the roles and responsibilities of State Emergency Service during and immediately after an emergency? I'll just explain to you that the SEM tells us what we're going to do. So SES is a control agency for flood, storm, tsunami, earthquake and landslide. So no matter what, if one of those occurs, SES is notified, we will be the incident controllers. Until it's determined that we can handle that to the landowner, for instance. Okay, so we've taken care of the emergency or the incident. That could be cordoning off the area, it could be responding to the event with sandbags and other things. It could be that it's a full-scale rescue event. This is where it can get a little bit cloudy because rescues, the majority of rescues, especially marine rescues, where we're talking about floods, the control agency is Victoria Police. But guess who's got all the boats up here? It's yes. Right, so the incident controller may change to a police officer. They will manage the incident, but we will respond as a support agency on their behalf. So, road crash rescue. So SES is the largest provider of road crash rescue in the state of Victoria. Right, so you've got a rescue truck up at Corrion, there's one at Tolanga, one at Minamita, and they respond to a series of general rescues, which could involve ropes, but predominantly around road rescue. But the incident controller for road rescue is again Victoria Police, but we provide the rescue service for them. So we will be in charge of the actual rescue itself, however police will maintain control of that emergency itself. We also do a lot of other support roles, so we provide lighting, other rescue roles in support of Victoria Police, rescue with CFA and FRV. We'll also assist police with land search. So they're the control agency for land search as well, but quite often you need a lot of boots on the ground to do that. So SES and other agencies will support them, but SES is the one that's provided a lot of training in that space. So if you saw events like that in Town Shire in Walwa, you'd expect to probably see somebody in orange at some stage, being our response colour, that's what we wear, attending that event. But it's likely, because you guys know that you're in a fairly remote location in Hume region, that it has to be that all agencies response, and you will see the yellow of CFA, you will see the green of Forest Fire Management, you'll see ambulance, police. Okay, so and that's just the nature of it, we have to do that. That probably answers what can the community expect from your agency during an emergency. So you'll see a response from one of our volunteers. So SES is our response is fully done by the community, by people like yourselves. Right, so we're all volunteers, supported by a few people like myself to support them in operations, but it is a community response model, community volunteer response model. And my number one tip to help the community prepare for an emergency. I heard just talking about it before, but you guys are probably not, we're probably fully aware of your remoteness. And sometimes, depending upon what's happening in a large scale emergency, you can't expect to have the one rescue truck responsible for your area coming to your place. It might be dealing with events in Corrion. It may not be able to get here. You might have to try and bring people in from Tolanga or from Melbourne even. So that resilience and being able to look after yourselves for a short period of time while we muster the troops and other agencies to come and help or to finally try and get into you is of paramount importance, because you can't always guarantee in a large scale emergency that we're actually going to be able to get there and help you. And that's due to the natural environment around you and your distance from other places.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Charlie, for providing a fabulous overview of the emergency services and then drill down into SES. So fantastic, thanks for setting that scene for us. Beautifully done. I'm going to hand over to Andy Arnold, who is the community engagement person for CFA, if I can.
I'm going to quickly handle Trevor. We'll do the first
I'll do the first two questions.
and then I'll do the last.
Oh, perfect. Okay, lovely. Thank you. So
First,
CFA.
my name's Trevor Ebbels, not all of the name, but I'm actually, I might wear an FRV shirt, but they're only the paymasters. I actually work for CFA, and I'm the catchment commander for the Cowlong Shire on behalf of the Chief Officer. So I do, but my primary work is looking after the brigades in this Shire. So our role, as Charlie indicated, as agencies, we've all got designated particular emergencies to be the lead agency. So we're lead agency for fire, also for some rescues of scaffoldings and lifts, believe it or not. That includes ski lifts, not that you have a lot of them around here, but particularly up in the Alps. We are the controlling agency for rescues on those lifts. We know nothing about ski lifts. We manage the incident, we use the resort management staff to actually perform the task. We also, and I won't bore you with a lot of the other stuff, because I can't remember after that I'll read it again. More importantly, we've got a lot of brigades across the state, and something like about 1,200 brigades. Your remoteness makes it a bit of a challenge. It's not because it's, it's only, as a crow flies, it's probably only about 15 k's to Tintolja and not much further to Burrowing, but the road network makes it a bit difficult for us to respond in a timely manner. All the brigades that around Victoria now are actually volunteers. Within CFA, they're all volunteer. It takes time to get them on the down to the fire stations, get the vehicles and get out. So, what to expect? If you have a fire emergency or an emergency that we deal with, we will respond from the AAA call. We have designated areas where the brigade's responsible for, and they've activated fire paging systems, and they respond. And they will deal with the emergency as best they can with the equipment they've got. If they need more support, we can provide that support, but remember it comes from a distance, and sometimes a long distance. So, I think that answers that one. And from an expectation, I think it's really important that you are aware, every community member should be aware of the conditions on every day of the year. Fires can occur, we just don't talk about bushfires. Structure fires, gas fires, things like that. Make sure that you check your chimneys and flues, check your power leads, check your electric blankets. Don't leave things unattended on the stove. All those sort of things can actually help you and prevent incidents, and that's what we're about. Our primary role is to prevent fires, not to extinguish them. That's the second thing. And that's where the community needs to, in partnership, is to be prepared yourself, and Andy will talk a little bit more about that. But our expectations, or your expectations for us during an emergency, we are visible, we will be seen, we will be there. It may not always be in the capacity that you would like, but we will be there. I think that's probably covers it.
Yep, that's great, fantastic. We've just got 1 minute and 15 seconds.
That's right.
Thank you.
Well, I've got 10 seconds down. So, Andy Arnold, I'm CFA Community Safety, so my role is to help communities educate themselves and empower communities to understand risk, to plan, to prepare, to prevent fires, or understand or lessen their impact on communities and individuals, to make better decisions or improve your decision making during an emergency. I suppose the key takeaway message is a plan is critical. It's really hard to think, as you're well aware, on what to do when you're under pressure. And we're happy to provide those services, and we will be providing those workshops leading into this year, or this financial year. So keep your ears peeled if you want to do a bit for yourselves, get yourself a written plan, have a good understanding, discuss as a group. That's what we're going to facilitate for you. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you so much, CFA, that was great. I want to just reiterate that we'll take questions at the end of the whole panel, but we're also going to have an afternoon tea, so if you don't get a chance to ask a question then, we really want to get people having a two-way conversation. So next on my list is Ross Martin. Ross is from Victorian Police and the leading senior constable, so police role, responsibility of your organisation in an emergency and what the community can expect, and a hot tip. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Ross Martin, I'm from the Corona Police Station. I've been in the police force for 28 years. I've been in the Navy for 7 years before that in the submarine squadron. Yes, I was on that submarine at Holbrook. So I'm not an expert, but I'm not as green as I am cabbage looking. I was here, I think me and Simon are the only two policemen that are still here from the fires. I was here when it jumped the Murray River, and my first job was to block the Shelley Walwa Road. So I do know what happens in Walwa. So our roles, Charlie sort of covered it a bit, but the police are the only one to get to Guernsey. So if we're the combating role, we can either be the combating role, so that includes, as Charlie mentioned, so for search, that's the Victoria Police Force. For threats to life and property, that's Victoria Police Force. Floods come under SES, and fire, of course, the CFA or, and if it comes under, if we're just the supporting agency, we're actually coordinate, so we help coordinate. So we bring together the agencies and resources to support the response of that emergency. So, as Charlie gave the example for filling of sandbags, so SES might say we require sandbags, so it's up to the police force to then go to the Shire and say SES wants sandbags, so we coordinate the truck getting through an exclusion zone, we coordinate the people to fill the sandbags, and then the distribution of the sandbags from there as well. So we have a coordination role and also a role that requires us to, if we're the combating agencies, you would typically expect us to take control and provide leadership of the incident, including support for other emergency agencies. So what that entails, typically what you would expect from us is crowd control, traffic diversion, provide access for other emergency services, isolation of the area, warning for persons likely to be endangered, and the exclusion of unauthorised persons. Our tip from the Victoria Police, and I'm sure it covers everyone, is prepare early. In my own experience, I never had a fire plan because I always thought I'd be working. I worked 18 hours and they said, Ross, you've got to go home. So I went back to Corrion, and this fire came over Mount Minimum, thinking, shit, what do I do now? So really, you really need to prepare early, have a plan, and just be informed and act on directions from your agency. Like, believe me, I don't want to knock on your door, I don't want to tell you to leave, but I'm told to do it by someone who's smarter than me. Alright, so if we ask you to do something, it's not because I've got nothing better to do, okay? So please listen to us when we come and knock on your door.
Fantastic, thanks heaps, Ross. And yeah, look, so I mentioned at the start, some of us are paid and some of us are not, but whether you're paid or not, working in the middle of a disaster can be really tough for everyone, so hats off to everyone who's presenting. Thank you so much, Ross. We've got the Bush Nursing Centre up next. If I can introduce Marshal up to you. Again, Marshal's going to talk about role and responsibility of this wonderful organisation, what we can expect from the nursing centre during a disaster, and a hot tip if you've got one.
Okay.
All of that, I'll give you a list.
Alright, so my name's Marshal. I'm a registered nurse here, but I also work in a role as a remote area nurse, and that's in particular when working with Ambulance Victoria. So we're here for the community. We respond to emergencies, but also provide preventative health care on a daily basis. But in the instance of, say, a O response, we'll be the first on the ground to help, I guess, stabilise the patient until Ambulance Victoria paramedics arrive on scene. Whilst it's mainly a responsive role, we can also initiate. So if we're first on the scene, we can, if it requires more extensive intervention, we can make a O call to, I guess, facilitate the process for the paramedics to become involved. So that's, I guess, our role generally, but certainly during the emergencies, and certainly I'd say to the community, if it's an event that requires a O response, to call the O number first before calling the Bush Nursing Centre, just to start the process of getting the level of care that an individual would need. The second question,
So I think you probably covered it, so what the community can expect from the organisation during a disaster.
Yeah. So we're here to provide, I guess, the care that people will need, from, I guess, the most prosaic to responding to an emergency that's required, and if it goes beyond the level that we can provide, certainly we'll facilitate that process of getting you an ambulance and facilitating the process to a tertiary hospital in Albury or Wodonga in particular are our closest ones. So we're here for that care, but also I guess that advice in terms of health issues that may arise. So we will certainly facilitate what we can. And I guess in terms of a take-home message in relation to number 3, I guess the importance of having a first aid kit in those emergency situations, but also I guess having a grab bag, which may or may not have been mentioned already, of having kind of key documents in there. And I guess in relation to health, having your medications or your prescriptions with you, so that if you have to leave and you need subsequent care elsewhere, that you've got that information available, so that the health professional that you see can make the right decisions for your health. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. It's lovely, and thank you so much for hosting us here too. You've got a fabulous venue as well. So you guys are so lucky to have. I think there's 15 bush nursing centres across Victoria.
That's correct, and we're the only one in the Upper Hume area.
Yeah, it's an absolute asset to the community. Thank you. So I'd like to call now on DEECA, Andy Wernert and Brittany Ebbels. I'm so pleased you changed your name to something I can pronounce now. So it was DEECA. Well, DEECA's much better. So thanks, guys.
My name is Brittany and I work in community and partnerships for DEECA, which stands for the Department of Environment, Energy and Climate Action now, so formerly known as Dept. But we primarily work under the Forrest Fire Management Victoria brand, which I'll go into a little bit soon. So who is DEECA? So we are responsible for a lot of different things. So we've got Agriculture Victoria, Climate Change, Energy, Environment, Explore Outdoors, Forest Fire Management Victoria, which most of you guys will probably recognise, Forest and Reserves, Marine and Coasts, which don't impact us, Solar Victoria, Water and Catchments, and Wildlife. So quite a lot. For you guys, you're probably more likely only interested in sort of the Forest Fire Management Victoria part of our work, Forest and Reserves, maybe Wildlife, and Environment. Beautiful. So who is FFMVic? So we are made up of firefighters from DEECA, Parks Victoria, Melbourne Water and Vic Forest. We work really closely with our partner agencies such as the CFA and Fire Rescue Victoria and other emergency services. And our core purpose is to protect people, property and the environment. We do this by managing bushfire risk in Victoria's parks, forests and other public land, and also minimising the risk. So we do this through sort of planned burning, fire preparedness and prevention, and emergency response and recovery. In the Upper Murray, we have 3 work centres. So we've got one based in Corrion, which isn't too far from here, one at Tolangata and one at Meadow Valley, which is really good for us. So our staff, when they're not responding to bushfires, they're actually out in the bush all the time, so they know the area really well. Also under FFMVic brand, when we are responding to a fire, we employ seasonal firefighters, so they'll come on during the warmer months, and they also fight fires alongside our permanent staff who know our work really well. I'll go to the next slide. I'll throw over to Andy as well.
Thanks, Chris. So my name's Andy Wernert. I'm currently the Acting District Manager for the Upper Murray District, and I'm based at Tolangata. So during an emergency, our primary responsibility is to respond to bushfire on public land, and we support the CFA with fire on private land. As well as that, during an emergency, our staff will be undertaking critical roles in incident control centres at local levels, maybe in regional control centres, and even at times in the state control centre in Melbourne. And then following the emergency, we have lead responsibility with recovery, whether that's from fire, flood, or other emergencies as well. So that's the sort of thing we will do. Got everything there, Britt?
Just in terms of recovery, just mention a couple of points. So this can include recovery such as if our equipment destroys things on property or fencing. We will reopen roads and things like that. Restoring forest parks and infrastructure. So after the 1920 bushfires, a lot of our reserves were destroyed, so we went and put out new camping areas, rebuilt huts and that sort of thing, and also cultural heritage and wildlife rescues as well.
So you'll see our firefighters, we mainly use dry firefighting techniques, so if we're right up in the bush, we'll be using rake hose and chainsaws and things rather than hose layers and water. We will be initiating work with heavy plants, so bulldozers, excavators, things like that, also supporting aircraft. We also have rappel crews. They're the firefighters that slide down ropes from helicopters into remote locations, so we have a fairly wide variety of trained personnel, so we cover it all. Oh, and also our fire lookout towers. One of our tower operators is in the room here, so I better not forget him. But we have three fire towers in the district, one here at Mount Minimum, Mount Grania and Mount Benambra. So that network operates through the summer, detecting smoke for us. And that's it, we're up to the tip. So we had a whole list of tips, but to narrow it down to maybe one slogan, if you like, we thought ours would be prepared, and once the emergency situation occurs, stay aware.
And another one is, if you haven't already, which I'm sure most of you have, download the Big Emergency app. When there are incidents, emergencies in your area, if you're signed up to that, it'll ping your phone straight away. So that's the place to go to get the latest information on any emergency. There you go.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Yeah, really comprehensive. Hold on, if I could please. So Australian Red Cross. Lynne, if you can take us through the roles and responsibilities of Red Cross, what people can expect from us, and our help team on the line. Thank you.
Australian Red Cross. We are a support agency to the other agencies. We don't have fire trucks, we don't have all the firefighting equipment, we don't have ready green lights on our vehicles and sirens, so we don't go out to the actual emergency. But when the emergency has been declared and it is deemed necessary to have an evacuation or a relief centre open, we are there, our volunteers are there to, on behalf of Vicom or Victoria Police, to register people coming in that have been asked or needed to evacuate their homes. Now that is a very important part of an emergency, because all our registrations go down to a central database in Melbourne. So if any of your friends, relatives from anywhere in Australia or overseas say, oh gosh, there's a fire in so-and-so's area, I hope they're safe. Well, they can contact our centre and they will tell them that yes, your loved one is safe and well and where they are. It has changed a bit, of course, because of mobile phones. So yeah, what can you expect from us when we're in a relief centre? As I have just said, we are there primarily to support Victorian Police by doing the registrations. But we're also there to support you and to ensuring that you get relevant information from the relevant agency that you needing to get the information from. We are, usually when we do RV, well, all the time, the council are there. So if you ask us a question, we're not going to make up an answer. We will send you over to the council representatives that are there for the day, who will give you the relevant and the proper information. So please, that is so important to get the relevant information. Don't go out on this on Facebook. Everyone puts their own opinion on Facebook, and it isn't always necessarily the correct response that you are looking for. Also, there to be a listening ear, to listen to your needs. So what we call it is psychological first aid, though we don't have a couch or anything to lay you down and give you psychological assessment. We're there as a listening ear, and we look at the person that's speaking with us, we listen to what you've got to say. We don't tell you how to do or how to, what you need to do next. We let you work that out yourself, we give you guidance. But we also ensure that if you need medical assistance in the Revent Centre, that we send you over to either the ambulance maybe there or St John's Ambulance. We don't provide you with just a band-aid and send you on the way. But so that's our prime thing, is to look after your welfare, and that while the Relief Centre is open. And when a Relief Centre is open, we are there from the beginning of it opening to the closing, and we are there if it's open 24 hours a day. Our volunteers are also there. My tip would be to please be prepared. Get yourselves a ready plan, book, there it is. Go through that, have a plan for your household, but make sure you can have everyone in the household on the same page, so you know what to do, where to go, when and if unfortunately an emergency happens in our area.
Fantastic, thank you so much, Lynne. And just to reiterate, please, as Lynne saying, there's a ready plan on all of your seats. We work very closely with our emergency services, so we're not saying anything different from them. We're all on the same page, but it's a tool that you